Okay, so picture this. A car explodes in the heart of Delhi, right near a famous landmark. At first, everyone thinks it's just a terrible accident. But as the dust settles and investigators start digging, the evidence starts pointing to something much more calculated, more sophisticated, and honestly, a lot more terrifying. So let's dive into this and see how one single blast unraveled a completely new kind of terror plot.
And this is where it all begins. It's a Tuesday evening just before 7 p.m. We're in central Delhi, a place that is just buzzing with people. Thousands of people pass through here every single day.
You know, for the first responders on the scene, the big question was, what happened here? The initial theory, and it's a common one, was a CNG cylinder explosion. But the sheer force of this blast, the impact was huge. It told a completely different and way more sinister story. There was no way this was just an accident.
All right, so let's break down what the investigators were dealing with in those first critical hours. They're on the ground, trying to make sense of all the chaos.
Here are the hard facts as they started coming in. The location was right near Gate 1 of the Red Fort metro station. The vehicle involved was a white Hyundai i20 with a Haryana license plate. Like we said, the impact was just way too powerful for a normal car fire or a cylinder blast. And tragically, 9 people were confirmed to have died. Because of how it all looked, the authorities didn't hesitate. They immediately started treating this as a terror attack under the UAPA, that's the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, a really serious law for these kinds of situations.
Okay, so once the scene was secured, the entire investigation really zeroed in on the single most important piece of evidence they had, the car itself. You see, its journey in the hours right before the blast held all the first crucial clues.
So they started pulling CCTV footage from all over, and they pieced this timeline together. The car comes into Delhi from Faridabad that afternoon. At 3:19 p.m., it pulls into a public parking lot. Now here's the really strange part. The driver, a guy they identified as Umar Mohammed, he doesn't get out. He just sits inside the car for over 3 hours, just waiting. Then, around 6:30, he pulls out, drives a very short distance, and at 6:52 p.m., the car explodes at a traffic light.
So then the question becomes, who is this driver? And that's where things got really messy. And messy on purpose. The car was officially registered to someone in Gurugram, but he'd sold it to a man named Tariq in Pulwama, in J&K. Tariq then passed it on to another man from the same place, a doctor named Umar Mohammed, the guy who was driving the car. See what they did? This quick chain of sales is a classic tactic to just confuse the trail, to muddy the waters and slow down the police.
So the investigation had a suspect. They had a timeline. But the case didn't just break open, it completely exploded. And it's all because of a connection they made to a terror raid in a city right next door. A raid that proved this Delhi blast, well, it was just the beginning.
And this right here, this was the aha moment. The forensic teams are going through all the debris from the Delhi blast, and they find traces of ammonium nitrate. Now, why is that such a huge deal? Because just days earlier, there was a police raid in nearby Faridabad where they found a massive stash of the exact same chemical. That's it. That was the smoking gun. The connection was made.
And we are not talking about a small amount here. That raid in Faridabad, it uncovered a staggering 2,900 kilograms of ammonium nitrate. To put that in perspective, this wasn't a plan for just one car bomb. This was an arsenal, big enough for a whole campaign of terror.
And it wasn't just the explosives. Just look at what else they found. Rifles, pistols, electronic timers, complex circuits for detonators, suitcases packed with components, even walkie-talkies. This was the whole toolkit for a really sophisticated, well-supplied, and incredibly dangerous terror cell operating right under everyone's noses. So this investigation did more than just stop a single plot. It uncovered something deeply alarming. A major evolution in terrorist strategy. It revealed a whole new kind of threat. They're calling it white-collar terror, and it's pretty much what it sounds like. These organizations are now actively recruiting and using highly educated professionals to do their dirty work. Remember the driver of the car? He was a doctor, and it turns out other suspects they arrested in connection with that Faridabad raid were also medical professionals. This is a huge strategic shift. So you have to ask, why make this shift? Well, because it's dangerously effective. Think about it. A doctor, an engineer, they don't fit the old stereotype. They blend right in. Nobody suspects them. Their professional status gives them this air of legitimacy, which makes it way easier to do things like rent apartments, buy certain chemicals for research, or move money around without raising any red flags. It's the perfect cover.
So this whole incident, it's not just a story about one attack. It's a massive wake-up call, and it exposes some really critical vulnerabilities in the security of all of our cities.
Let's just look at the gaps this plot exploited. The whole messy business of used car sales, we clearly need a better, more robust way to verify who owns what. And the chemicals, like ammonium nitrate, that stuff has legitimate industrial uses, so how do you monitor it better? And then there's public parking security, especially near sensitive areas. You can see how this one event raises some really tough questions that need answers. And really, this is the question we're all left with. As these terror groups adapt and evolve their methods, as they start using the very professionals who are supposed to be the bedrock of our society, it forces all of us to ask a really uncomfortable question. Is the biggest threat no longer lurking on the fringes, but hiding in plain sight?